Golden Plate stood like a palace in the middle of a restless city. Its walls sparkled under the sun, catching the eyes of drivers stuck in traffic. Through the towering glass windows, people could catch a glimpse of white napkins folded into triangles, crystal glasses lined up with precision, and chairs that looked too expensive to sit on. Every night, luxury cars lined the front entrance like trophies. Black Mercedes, sleek Range Rovers, even the occasional imported Bentley. Inside, everything moved in polished rhythm. Chefs barked quiet commands in the kitchen, servers glided across the marble floors, and a string quartet played softly in the corner on weekends. Emma swept the floors. She moved silently, always at the edges of the room, like a shadow that had learned not to be seen. Her brown and gold uniform was always neat, though it had faded from many washes. She tied her scarf tight around her head and kept her eyes down. Not because she was ashamed. Emma had learned early on that the less people noticed her, the more she could survive. "Emma," one of the waiters whispered, passing by with a silver tray. "Table 12 spilled wine again." "I'll handle it," she said with a nod, gripping her mop like it was a sword. Emma never complained. She never asked for anything, except at night. After the last customer had left and the kitchen lights had gone dim, she would knock gently on the back door where the chefs took their smoke breaks. "Please, is there any leftover food?" she would ask. Sometimes it was rice with a piece of chicken. Other nights, just bread. She never asked twice. She never begged in the way people think begging looks. Her voice stayed calm, humble. She took what was given and disappeared into the dark, like a leaf caught in the wind. Most nights, no one paid her much attention. She was the cleaner, the background noise. But that night, Mr. William noticed. He had stayed late in his office on the second floor, reviewing balance sheets and scrolling through emails he didn't want to answer. The glass of untouched wine on his table had long gone warm. He sighed, loosened his tie, and headed for the exit. As he stepped into the parking lot, he heard a soft voice near his SUV. "Please, leftover food?" He paused. There, near the back gate, stood Emma, her hands folded tightly in front of her. She wore the same brown uniform, but something about the way she stood, still, almost trembling, made Mr. Williams stop walking. He didn't speak at first, just watched. Emma shifted uncomfortably when she noticed him. "Good evening, sir," she said quickly, looking at the ground. "You're Emma, right? Cleaning department?" "Yes, sir." He studied her for a second. Her shoes were worn, at the toes. Her scarf had a tear on the side, and her voice, there was something in it. Not weakness, not fear. Just exhaustion wrapped in politeness. "What are you doing near my car?" he asked, more curious than accusing. Emma hesitated, then finally looked up. Just for a second, long enough for him to see her eyes. They were heavy, as if she hadn't slept properly in weeks. "I was asking if I could take some leftover food," she said. "Only if there's any." Mr. William blinked. "Just food?" Emma nodded. "I don't need money, sir. Just a little food. If it's okay?" There was a strange silence between them, a kind of invisible weight. Then Mr. William gave a small nod. "Okay." "Thank you, sir," she whispered, and quickly disappeared through the side door. He watched her go, but didn't move. For some reason, he couldn't. He stood in the quiet lot, staring at the kitchen door she'd vanished behind. Why didn't she ask for help? For a raise? Why only leftovers? Mr. William got in his SUV, but didn't start the engine. He leaned back in his seat and stared through the windshield. Emma's voice echoed in his head. 10 minutes passed. The kitchen door creaked open. Emma stepped out, holding 2 small black plastic bags. They didn't look heavy. She clutched them close to her chest and walked quickly toward the street, past the cars, past the shine of Golden Plate, like she didn't belong in that world. and was desperate to return to her own. Mr. William narrowed his eyes. Something pulled at him, a strange tug in his chest. Without really thinking about it, he turned the key and started his engine. No headlights, no music. Just quiet. He let. Her walk ahead, then slowly followed. She didn't notice. Emma's steps were quick, familiar. She moved like someone who had walked this same path many times before. Mr. William trailed behind, far enough to stay invisible. At the corner, she boarded a rusted yellow bus. He followed in his SUV. The night outside the city lights was darker than usual. Street lamps flickered. The road grew rougher. Buildings shifted from glass to tin roofs and broken bricks. Finally, the bus stopped. Emma stepped off and walked down a narrow, unpaved road. Mr. William parked his car a block away and followed her on foot. The air smelled of dust and old wood. Emma reached a crumbling building with cracked walls and no gate. The windows were shattered, covered in thin cloth. She knocked once, then opened the door. Before she even stepped inside, two little girls came running out. "Mommy!" one screamed. "You came back!" cried the other. Emma dropped the bags and fell to her knees, hugging them tight. Her smile lit up the dark like a street lamp. Her face, exhausted moments ago, glowed now with something sacred. Love. Mr. William stood frozen in the shadows. She has children? He pressed a hand to his chest. It ached. From where he stood, he could see through the broken window as Emma sat the girls on a mat. She opened the bags and served them rice and a piece of chicken, split perfectly in two. They ate fast, giggling between bites. But Emma didn't eat. She just watched them, smiling, hungry, but content. Mr. William turned away from the window, his eyes burning. The night air felt cold against his skin. He didn't feel rich anymore. He just felt small. The next morning, the restaurant hummed with early activity. Kitchen staff chopped vegetables in rhythmic unison. Servers practiced greetings near the entrance, and soft music floated from the speakers like perfume. Mr. Williams sat in his office on the second floor, suit crisp as always. But something about him had shifted. He wasn't reviewing the budget spreadsheet in front of him. Instead, he stared through the glass wall that gave him a full view of the dining area below. His eyes scanned the floor like he was searching for something, someone. And then, there she was, Emma. She moved quietly, almost invisibly, carrying a bucket and cloth. Her scarf was the same one from last night, slightly more wrinkled. Her eyes looked more tired than usual, but she wore that same expression, focused, calm, almost peaceful. He watched as she knelt to clean a smudge under a chair, brushing every edge with care. Not rushed, not lazy, precise, intentional. She even smiled faintly when one of the waitresses passed and greeted her. "Morning, Emma," the girl said. "Good morning, Miriam," Emma replied without lifting her head. There was no bitterness in her voice, no complaint, just warmth. Mr. William tilted his head. She's working like nothing happened last night, like he hadn't seen her in that broken building, like he hadn't watched her skip her own meal so her daughters could eat. He tapped his pen against the desk, restless. Why hasn't she said anything? He expected something this morning, a thank you, a question, even just a glance. But she didn't look up at the second floor window once. She just worked. Around noon, Mr. Williams stepped out of his office, ignoring the greetings from staff as he walked down the stairs. His shoes clicked against the floor as he entered the main dining area. He didn't head toward a table. He watched. Emma was cleaning near the back, her back turned to him. She was wiping a wooden chair leg with slow, careful hands, unaware of anything else around her. He cleared his throat. Emma looked up and stood quickly. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, straightening her uniform. Mr. William nodded. How's work today? She looked surprised by the question. It's going well, sir. He looked around. Busy morning? Yes, sir. But everything is under control. There was a brief pause. Awkward. Heavy. He glanced at the cloth in her hand. You cleaned that same spot 3 times. Emma blinked, then gave a quiet laugh. I didn't notice. Habit, I guess. Mr. William didn't smile. Do your daughters like rice? Emma stiffened. For a split second, her mask cracked. Her eyes widened slightly before she caught herself. Yes, sir, she said slowly, unsure of his intentions. They do. He gave a short nod. That's good. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving her staring after him. Back in his office, Mr. Williams stood by the window again. He watched as Emma went back to work, but something was different now. Her movements weren't as fluid. She glanced up once, in his direction, then quickly away. He had unsettled her. Good, he thought. Not out of cruelty, but because he needed to understand her. There was something about her silence that unnerved him more than any complaint. Would have. He pulled his chair and sat heavily. Who was she? He opened his employee database, typed in Emma, and waited for the system to load. Emma Nwoke. Hired 7 months ago. No disciplinary actions, no lateness, no warnings. Salary minimum wage. Emergency contact, none. Her address matched the building he saw. Under dependents, the space was blank. He frowned. Why didn't she list her daughters? His phone buzzed. A text from the head chef. New supplier arrived. Need you to sign the contract today. He replied with a quick, later. He wasn't done. He kept staring at the screen, then at the floor below, then back at the screen. Emma, he thought. What are you hiding from the world? Later that day, in the break room, 2 servers were gossiping over cups of cold coffee. Emma entered quietly, heading to the corner where the mop buckets were kept. She didn't want to disturb them, but she heard her name. She's always so quiet. Like a ghost, one said. Yeah, but she works harder than everyone, the other replied. Doesn't talk, doesn't rest, like she's on some mission. Maybe she's hiding something. You never know these days. Emma's hand froze on the mop handle. The women laughed softly. Emma didn't turn around. She just picked up the mop and left the room without a word. But the words stuck. She returned to her duties, but her shoulders were tighter. Her silence, once her shield, now felt like a wall closing in. That evening, as the restaurant emptied, again, Mr. William watched from the shadows near the hallway. He knew what she would do. He wanted to see if she would change her routine. And there it was. Emma walked slowly to the back kitchen door, holding nothing but a small plastic bag. She knocked softly. One of the junior chefs opened. Emma, you want the usual? If there's any, please. He handed her a small takeaway box. There's rice today. No meat, though. That's fine. Thank you. She bowed her head slightly and turned to leave. Mr. William didn't follow her this time. He already knew where she was going. Instead, he walked to his car, sat inside, and closed his eyes. Emma's face, her hands, her daughter's laughter, they had all taken up space in his mind, and that space refused to go quiet. Something about her haunted him, but not in a dark way, in a human way. She reminded him of something he had forgotten, that people could suffer quietly, right beside you, without ever asking for more than they absolutely needed. He turned on the ignition but didn't drive away. Instead, he sat there, engine humming, questions loud in his head. Who else am I not seeing? The moon hovered low over the city, pale and silent. Golden Plate had closed for the night, its sparkling facade now dimmed, its halls echoing only with the whispers of cleaners finishing up and the occasional clang from the kitchen. Mr. William didn't leave immediately. He lingered by the second-floor window, watching the emptying dining area, then the kitchen corridor. It was nearly 10 p.m., and most of the staff had gone home. But not her, Emma. She moved with the same quiet grace, stacking chairs, wiping tables, checking corners most would ignore. He leaned against the window frame, arms crossed. Something gnawed at him. She had answered his questions earlier with politeness, yes, but beneath her composure, there was a storm she didn't let surface. He could see it. He felt it. When she exited the kitchen again, carrying a small plastic bag close to her chest, Mr. Williams straightened. Not tonight. He would follow her. He didn't even fully understand why. Curiosity, maybe, or guilt, or something deeper, older. Whatever it was, it pulled at him like gravity. He descended the stairs quietly, slipped through the back door, and kept his distance. Emma walked quickly, almost as if afraid of being seen. She passed rows of parked cars, her head down, footsteps, light but determined. She reached the bus stop and waited alone. The street was nearly empty, except for a few motorbikes zipping past and one vendor closing up his cart of roasted corn. Minutes later, a yellow minibus screeched to a stop in front of her. She climbed in. Mr. William followed in his sleek black SUV, headlights dimmed, always at a distance. He felt ridiculous, a man in a luxury vehicle trailing behind a rusted bus filled with exhausted night workers. But he didn't stop. The further. They drove. The rougher the roads became. Glass towers gave way to concrete blocks, then to tin rooftops and open drainage. Streetlights grew scarce. Stray dogs barked. Potholes yawned across the asphalt. Still, he followed. The bus turned into a narrow street, then stopped. Emma stepped down, adjusting her scarf as the doors clanged shut behind her. Mr. William pulled over discreetly, turning off his headlights. He waited, then slowly opened his door and stepped out. The air smelled of smoke and rust. Emma walked with purpose, weaving through small alleys, past locked kiosks and homes made of patched metal sheets. Her silhouette moved quickly under the faint light of a broken street lamp. She didn't look back once, then she turned down a dirt path lined with broken bricks. At the end of it stood a building, or what used to be one. The walls were gray with time, paint peeling like old bark. The roof sagged slightly. A piece of cloth flapped where a window pane should have been. Emma approached the door, knocked gently. Then it opened. Two children burst out with squeals of laughter. "Mommy!" they cried in unison. Mr. William froze in place. The girls ran barefoot to her, hugging her legs, pulling at her hands. Emma crouched down and held them tight, her smile lighting up her entire face. "I'm here, my darlings," she whispered. "I brought something for you." Mr. William's breath caught. He took a few steps forward and crouched beside a nearby tree, careful not to be seen. From there, he could see through the torn curtain of the window. Inside, there was nothing but a mat on the floor and a dim lantern flickering weakly. Emma unpacked the food. One small container of jollof rice, one piece of chicken. She split the rice into two small plates and cut the chicken cleanly in half. She handed a plate to each daughter, her movements gentle. The girls didn't waste a second. They devoured the meal with excitement, their faces lit with joy. But Emma didn't eat. She just sat there, back straight, hands in her lap, eyes watching them like they were stars in her sky. Mr. William felt his throat tighten. He blinked hard. She brought food and didn't keep any for herself. He'd seen poverty before. He'd donated to charities, funded community projects. But this was different. This wasn't statistics. This wasn't a report or a fundraising dinner. This was a mother choosing hunger for herself so her children could smile for one more night. He stood up slowly, heart pounding in his chest. He backed away from the house and leaned against a rusted pole, unsure of what to do with everything he now knew. Emma wasn't just a quiet worker. She was a fighter, a provider, a protector. The plastic bag, the silence, the downcast eyes. They all made sense now. It wasn't shame. It was focus. Everything she had was channeled into those two girls. There was no room for her own pain, no space for complaint. Just survival. He looked down at his polished shoes, now dusted with red sand. Suddenly, they didn't shine so brightly. Back inside the house, Emma was tucking the girls under a thin blanket. They were already half asleep, full and warm, their stomachs finally quiet for the night. She kissed their foreheads and whispered a prayer. Then, slowly, she sat back against the wall and exhaled. Her face relaxed, her eyes closed. Not in peace, but in exhaustion. Mr. William turned away and walked back to his car in silence. He sat behind the wheel, unmoving. The engine hummed beneath him, but he didn't shift into gear. Instead, he looked back at the broken house through his rearview mirror. Something had cracked inside him, and he wasn't sure how to fix it. The door creaked shut behind Emma as she stepped into the small, dim space she called home. The two little girls had already darted back inside, giggling barefoot across the cracked concrete floor, dragging the plastic bag from her hands like it was treasure. The room was barely large enough to hold the three of them. A thin mat lay in the center. One frayed curtain fluttered in the breeze from a missing window pane. There was no table, no sofa, no fridge, just a single shelf nailed to the wall, holding a cracked mirror and an empty bottle repurposed for drinking water. But despite all this, the house pulsed with something that wealth couldn't buy. Warmth. "Mommy, what did you bring?" asked the younger girl, hopping in place. Emma crouched near the mat, opened the bag gently, and took out a small white foam container. "Only a little rice, my love, but I made sure it's enough for both of you." The girls gasped with delight as she opened the lid. The familiar smell of jollof rice filled the room. 2 spoons, 1 piece of chicken. Emma cut the chicken into 2 equal pieces and served the rice into small plastic plates. The girls didn't wait. They sat cross-legged on the floor and dug in with wide smiles and hungry hands. Emma didn't touch anything. She sat quietly, back against the wall, watching them eat like it was the most beautiful performance in the world. Outside, hidden behind a tree across the dusty alley, Mr. William watched it all unfold through the ripped curtain. His knees ached from crouching. His car, parked a block away, was gathering dust under a broken streetlight. But he didn't move. He couldn't. The scene inside that house had him transfixed, not out of pity, not even guilt, but something deeper. He watched as Emma wiped crumbs from her daughter's mouths, as she smiled and hummed softly while they ate, as she tucked her legs under her and wrapped her scarf tighter around her head, trying to conserve warmth. He had never seen love so raw, so unadorned, so honest. The younger daughter, tiny with wild curly hair, looked up mid-bite. "Mommy, you're not eating?" Emma shook her head with a soft smile. "I already ate earlier, sweetheart." "You did?" the older girl asked suspiciously. Emma nodded. "I promise." The girls, satisfied, returned to their plates. But Mr. William knew the truth. He had seen her skip the food entirely, both at work and now at home. Her lies weren't lies. They were gifts, daily sacrifices wrapped in gentle words. And he realized something else. He wasn't watching a woman in need. He was watching a hero in disguise. Inside, Emma waited until the girls were done. She took their empty plates, rinsed them with water from a plastic bowl in the corner, then dried them with the edge of her skirt. "Time to sleep, my loves," she said gently. The girls lay on the mat, curled into each other like kittens. Emma fetched their school bags from the corner, checked that their notebooks were still intact, and placed them neatly by the door. Then she returned to them, humming again. A lullaby with no words, just a tune passed down through hardship and hope. Mr. William could hear it faintly. It broke something in him. He leaned against the tree trunk, head tilted back, eyes closed. His chest rose and fell in slow, heavy movements. He felt the weight of a million luxuries, his leather seat, his custom suits, his glass office, all pile on top of him at once. None of it mattered in that moment, because inside that crumbling home, there was something his entire world lacked: purpose. After a while, Emma's voice faded. The girls had fallen asleep, their breath soft and even. She sat beside them, cross-legged, back against the wall. She didn't move, didn't eat, didn't cry. She just stared ahead, eyes glossy, lips slightly parted as if caught between prayer and surrender. Mr. William checked his watch. Almost midnight. He knew he should leave, but instead, he stepped out from behind the tree, slowly, carefully. He crossed the alley, approaching the house not to be seen, but simply to get closer. Through the curtain, he saw Emma pull a small envelope from under the mat. She opened it, a few crumpled notes. Not enough to last another week. She sighed and slid it back under the mat, then leaned forward and kissed her daughters' foreheads again. "Tomorrow will be better," she whispered. It wasn't a wish, it was a vow. Mr. William turned and walked away, silent as the night. His heart pounded. He reached his SUV, opened the door, and sat behind the wheel without turning on the engine. He rested his hands on the steering wheel and whispered to the dark windshield, "What have I been doing with my life?" The dashboard clock blinked. Quietly, 12:06 a.m. He drove away without music, without noise, his headlights off for several minutes. The road back to the richer part of the city felt longer this time, colder. When he finally parked inside his gated home, the mansion was dark, sterile, quiet. He stepped into his marble-floored hallway and closed the door behind him. The silence was deafening. He poured himself a glass of water but didn't drink it. Instead, he sat on the edge of his king-size bed, removed his watch, and stared at it for a long time. What was the point of all this comfort, if it made him blind? He lay back but couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's smile. Not for herself, but for her daughters, and the way she sat in silence after they fell asleep. He covered his face with both hands. Not everyone who works quietly is weak, he thought. Some are just too strong to fall apart. The mansion was dead quiet. Mr. William sat on the edge of his bed, staring at nothing. The glass of untouched water still rested on his nightstand. The silk sheets on his bed were perfectly in place, the way the cleaner had left them that morning. But he hadn't touched them. He couldn't lie down. Not yet. Every time he blinked, he saw Emma's face. Not the one from work, polite, composed, quiet. The other one, the real one, sitting in silence on a bare floor, watching her daughters sleep with hunger hidden behind grace. He stood up and walked across the room to the balcony. From up there, the city lights looked peaceful, distant, unbothered. But in the shadows of those lights lived stories he had never cared to notice. Stories like Emma's. How many other Emmas work for me? It was a question that stabbed deeper the longer he sat with it. Mr. William walked back inside and grabbed his laptop. He opened the employee payroll file, one he hadn't looked at personally in months. He scrolled through the names. Cleaners, waiters, dishwashers, assistant cooks, security. He clicked on a random line. Ibrahim, dishwasher, and $35,000 month. Then another. Rose, waitress, and $42,000 month. And then Emma and Woke, cleaner, and $33,000 month. He stared at the number for a long time. $33,000. He earned that much in less than an hour on a regular business day. He could spend that on wine at lunch without blinking. Yet Emma had been feeding 2 children, paying rent, buying school supplies, surviving on that? He leaned back and rubbed his face with both hands. It wasn't just unfair. It was cruel. Next morning, Mr. William didn't wait for his driver. He took the SUV himself and arrived at the restaurant before sunrise. The cleaning team was already working, mopping floors, wiping chairs, preparing for the daily show of wealth. He saw Emma, head down, focused as always, moving across the lobby with her mop like a silent painter. But this time, he didn't stop her. Not yet. He walked straight to his office and called the HR manager. "Come in," he said when the knock came. The manager entered, smiling nervously. "Good morning, sir." Mr. William didn't return the smile. "Sit." The manager sat quickly. "I want to ask you something," Mr. William said, tapping a pen on the table. "When was the last time we reviewed wages for non-management staff?" The manager hesitated. Last year, sir. A 5% adjustment for inflation. 5% of very little is still very little." The manager nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I want a new plan, a real one. I want starting wages reviewed. I want living conditions factored in. I want a structure where nobody who works full-time here goes home hungry." The manager blinked. "Understood. Do you want to target a specific department?" "All of them," Mr. Williams said. "No exceptions." A pause. Then, "Effective when, sir?" Mr. William didn't even look up. "This month. Make it happen." The HR manager stood. "Yes, sir. I'll get started immediately." When the YUD door closed behind him, Mr. William sat in silence again. He wasn't looking for applause. He didn't care if anyone noticed. This wasn't about charity or image or brand loyalty. This was about responsibility. He had built a castle, yes, but he had filled it with people carrying burdens he had never bothered to see. Emma had opened his eyes without saying a word, and that haunted him more than any speech ever could. Later that morning, he stood by the glass again, watching her mop near the fountain in the reception area. She paused briefly to help another cleaner rearrange a stack of chairs. Even now, she smiled. Even now, she moved with dignity. And Mr. William, the man everyone feared for being cold and untouchable, suddenly felt like he was the one being watched, judged, by his own conscience. That evening, as the staff began closing down for the night, Emma lingered near the kitchen again. She held the same plastic bag, knocked the same soft knock, received the same leftover container. Mr. William watched from his office, but this time he didn't follow. He didn't need to. He already knew the weight she carried, and he had already decided what to do next. The first rays of morning light slid through the torn curtain like golden threads weaving hope into the gray walls of the room. Emma opened her eyes before the sun fully rose. She didn't stretch. She didn't sigh. She simply sat up and looked at her daughters still asleep on the mat beside her, their small chests rising and falling with innocent rhythm. She touched their hair gently, smoothing the curls with her fingers. "Time to wake up, my angels," she whispered. The older one stirred first, rubbing her eyes, blinking against the pale light. The younger one groaned, pulling the edge of the blanket tighter around her chin. Emma smiled. "Come on now. School doesn't wait for sleepyheads." Their morning routine began like a quiet dance. Emma lifted a small bucket and stepped outside, balancing it on her hip as she walked to the shared tap at the corner of the alley. The queue was short this early. She filled it quickly and returned, careful not to spill a drop. Inside, she poured water into a plastic bowl and began washing the girls, one at a time. The air was cool, but she was gentle. She used a piece of cloth, wetting and wiping their faces, arms, legs. The girls giggled at the touch of the cold water, their eyes waking up fully now. After drying them with a threadbare towel, Emma helped them into their small school uniforms. She had ironed them 2 nights before using a heated metal plate. The collars were neat. The buttons were secure. Each uniform carried her care in every stitch. Then came their hair, 2 neat ponytails, each tied with matching ribbons. "Done," she said, brushing her hands together. "You're the best, Mommy," the younger girl declared. Emma chuckled, shaking her head. "You haven't seen other mommies. I'm just doing my best." In the corner of the room, she retrieved the food container from the night before. Just a few spoonfuls of rice remained. Not much, but enough for 2 small plates. She warmed it on a single-burner gas stove, stirred it gently, and then served it. The girls sat cross-legged, still a little sleepy, still a little hungry, but grateful. "Eat well, my loves," Emma said. "It has to carry you through your lessons today." "What about you, Mommy?" the older one asked. "I'm not hungry," she said without blinking. "I'll eat later at work." They nodded, already used to this answer. When they finished, Emma packed their books into worn but clean backpacks, each with a small water bottle tucked in the side pouch. She walked them to school, their hands in hers, small feet dancing over potholes and puddles. The school was only a few blocks away, a faded building with no gate, paint peeling from the walls, and a chalkboard permanently stained with old lessons. But the girls didn't care. They skipped ahead with laughter, waving at classmates, ready for a new day. Emma knelt in front of them at the school entrance. "Be kind. Be smart. Listen to your teacher. Share your pencils." "Yes, Mommy," they chorused, hugging her tight. She held them for an extra second, then watched them run inside, disappearing into a world she wished was better for them. Her walk to work was longer. She couldn't afford daily transport. But Emma didn't mind walking. The movement cleared her mind. She walked with purpose, her shoes worn but sturdy. Every step was measured, every thought a quiet prayer. By the time she arrived at Golden Plate, the sun had climbed higher and the streets were buzzing with the morning rush. Emma reached the staff entrance, smiled at the guard, and signed in. "Morning, Emma," the head cleaner said, handing her the cleaning supplies. "Morning, sir." She tied her apron, pulled her scarf tight, and started with the front glass windows, wiping in circular motions, careful not to leave streaks. Then the floors, then the tables, then the restrooms. Every task was done with quiet pride. In the break room, a new girl was complaining to another server. "Why do we even bother? We break our backs here and go home with coins." Emma didn't say anything. She was refilling the mop bucket near the sink, but her silence made the girl glance at her. "You don't talk much, do you?" the girl asked. Emma turned slowly. "Talking doesn't change dirty floors," she replied with a small smile. The others chuckled, not unkindly, just surprised. Emma had become a quiet legend among the staff, always early, never late, never angry. No one really knew her. They just knew she never stopped moving. Around 10 a.m., Mr. William walked into the restaurant. Emma didn't notice him at first. She was wiping under a chair, but he saw her. He stood near the entrance, watching as she moved with the same calm precision. She finished wiping, adjusted the chair, and moved to the next. No corners skipped. No signs of fatigue. Mr. William blinked, then turned away. Something inside him tightened. Not guilt. Not pity. Respect. Back inside his office, he sat in his chair and opened a notebook. On a blank page, he wrote, "What does it cost to give people? Dignity?" Then he underlined it. Meanwhile, in the restaurant's back hallway, Emma passed by the kitchen. The chef handed her a plate of leftover breakfast, an extra portion from a canceled order. "Take this, Emma." She looked surprised. "Really?" He nodded. "I saved it before the others could get to it." She smiled genuinely. "Thank you." She didn't eat it immediately. She wrapped it carefully, placed it in her bag. Dinner, for later. Her daughters would be happy, and that was enough. Emma was polishing the brass handles on the main entrance when a voice interrupted her rhythm. "The boss wants to see you." She turned sharply. It was Queenidara, one of the senior cooks, standing at the edge of the hallway with a puzzled look. Emma's breath caught. "Me?" Queenidara nodded. "He just called. Asked for you. Alone." Emma's heart began to pound. She wiped her hands quickly on her apron and smoothed her scarf. "Did he say why?" "No, just said now." Emma glanced around, confused. She hadn't made a mistake, at least none that she could remember. But still, something twisted inside her gut. The hallway leading to Mr. Williams' office felt longer than usual. Each step echoed. She paused in front of the door, raised her hand to knock, then lowered it, breathed in, knocked twice. "Come in." His voice was calm, deep, unhurried. Emma pushed the door gently and stepped inside. Mr. William was seated behind his massive desk, sunlight falling over his shoulder through the tall windows. His suit was sharp, his face unreadable. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. "Sit down, Emma." She sat on the edge of the chair like it might bite. He waited a moment, then leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I want to talk to you about something important," he said. Emma nodded once, still unsure if she should be afraid. "I need to be honest," he continued. "I followed you home a few nights ago." Silence. Time stopped. Emma's eyes widened. Her hands trembled instantly. "Sir, I didn't do anything wrong." "I know you didn't." Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. "I was just trying to feed my children. I didn't mean to look suspicious. Please, sir, I didn't steal anything." Her voice cracked. Her shoulders tensed like she was preparing for punishment. Mr. Williams stood. "Emma," he said gently. She looked down. "I didn't follow you to catch you doing something wrong. I followed you because I saw something I didn't understand, and I needed to." Her lips quivered. Her chest rose and fell too fast. "I saw where you live," he said, voice low. "I saw your daughters. I saw how you split that food. I saw how you didn't eat." She closed her eyes. The tears fell freely now. He walked around the desk and stood beside her. Not towering, not intimidating, just present. "I saw strength," he said quietly. "More strength than I've seen in boardrooms and banks. You have nothing, and yet you give everything." Emma covered her face with her hands. Her body shook with sobs. "I didn't want anyone to know," she whispered through the tears. "They already look at me like I'm invisible. If they knew how poor I really am, maybe they wouldn't even look at all." Mr. William knelt slightly, meeting her eyes. "You are not invisible," he said. "Not to me. Not anymore." Emma couldn't speak. She just wept. He waited, letting her breathe, letting her feel something she hadn't allowed herself in a long time: relief. When she finally calmed down, he offered her a glass of water. She held it with shaking hands. "I don't know what to say, sir." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "But I do." He returned to his desk and opened a drawer. "I've been thinking about what I saw that night, and what it means. I can't unsee it, Emma. And I can't go back to pretending that people who work for me aren't struggling in silence." She looked up at him, unsure of what was coming next. "I want to help you," he said plainly. "Not out of pity, but because you deserve better." Emma blinked. "Help how, sir? We'll talk again tomorrow. I need to arrange a few things first. But I'm not going to let you leave this room without knowing your life is about to change." She put a hand to her chest. "Sir, you have dignity, Emma, and I want to honor that. You never asked for more. But you should have had more, from the start. Her tears came again, but these were different. Not the heavy, painful kind. They were lighter, hopeful. Thank you, she whispered. I never thought anyone would even notice. Well, I did, Mr. Williams said, and I won't forget what I saw. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Emma rose slowly, holding the glass of water as if it were gold. He opened the door for her himself. Go rest, he said. You've done enough for today. Outside the office, Emma walked back through the restaurant in a daze. No one looked at her differently. No one knew what had just happened. But she knew. Something had shifted, and for the first time in years, her steps felt lighter. Back inside, Mr. William remained seated, staring at the wall. His hands folded over each other, his thoughts loud and determined. Emma was the beginning, but not the end. Emma arrived early the next morning, as always. She entered the staff room quietly, tied her apron, and grabbed the mop bucket. But something felt different in the air. Some of the staff looked at her with curiosity, subtle glances exchanged behind steaming cups of tea. Boss called her in yesterday, one whispered. She looked shaken when she came out, another added. But Emma didn't notice. Her mind was still in Mr. Williams' office, replaying his words over and over like a lullaby she didn't dare believe was real. Your life is about to change. Still, part of her didn't fully trust it. People had made promises before. None had kept them. By mid-morning, a server approached her. Emma, the boss wants to see you again. Her stomach tightened. She wiped her hands on a cloth, straightened her back, and headed for the office. This time, she didn't hesitate at the door. She knocked with quiet confidence. Come in. Mr. Williams stood as she entered, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Good morning, Emma. Good morning, sir. He gestured to the seat across from him. Please, sit. She obeyed, hands resting in her lap, eyes steady but cautious. I said I'd have something for you today, he began. And I do. He slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Emma looked down. Her name was on it. So was a new title, Personal Assistant to the CEO. She looked back up at him, completely frozen. I'm serious, he said with a warm nod. You're sharp, organized, reliable. You've been managing your life, your daughters, and a full-time job with discipline and grace. Those are the same qualities I need by my side. I don't know how to be a personal assistant, she whispered. You didn't know how to be a mother in a broken world either, he replied. And look how well you're doing that. Tears shimmered in her eyes. That's not all, he said, standing up and reaching for a large brown envelope on his shelf. This is your new address. He handed it to her gently. Emma took it slowly, like it might vanish if she blinked too hard. I bought an apartment for you and the girls. It's modest but clean, safe and close to good schools. It has beds, real beds. There's water, electricity, a kitchen with a proper stove. Emma's lips parted, but no words came. Her hands began to shake. Sir, Mr. William walked around the desk and sat beside her. You and your daughters deserve more than just surviving, he said. You deserve to breathe, to rest, to live with dignity. She placed both hands over her mouth, unable to stop the tears now. And that's still not everything. She looked at him stunned. I've already paid the enrollment fees for your daughters. They'll start at their new school on Monday. Small classes, real teachers, uniforms, books. Emma bowed her head, crying into her hands. I don't know what to say, she whispered through her sobs. You don't have to say anything. But she did. Thank you. Thank you, sir. You don't know what this means. I was running out of ways to keep smiling for them. Mr. William placed a hand over hers. You don't have to smile alone anymore. That night, the smell of jollof rice filled the new apartment like a festival. The stove was brand new. The pots shimmered. The sink gleamed. Emma stood barefoot in the kitchen, stirring a full pot with chicken sizzling in the pan beside her. Her daughters sat on a plush rug, looking around the apartment with wonder. "Mommy, we have a couch! Mommy, there are lights in every room!" "Look, I have a bed, a real bed." Emma laughed, a sound she hadn't made in months without effort. "Come sit," she called. "It's ready." She served 3 full plates, real portions, chicken. Legs, not bones, warm, spicy rice, a bottle of clean water each. The girls sat at the table, a real table, and devoured the food with joyful chatter. "This is the best food ever," said the younger one, her mouth full. "I love this house, Mommy," said the older. Emma sat with them, her own plate in front of her, and this time, she ate. Later that evening, as the girls played with throw pillows in the living room, Emma sat on the couch and looked around slowly. The ceiling, the clean walls, the windows that shut properly, the curtains that didn't flap like rags. She exhaled deeply. A new life. It was real. She reached for her phone. It vibrated just then, an incoming call from Mr. William. She answered quickly. "Good evening, sir." His voice was calm, kind. "I just wanted to check on you." "And the girls?" "We're fine, sir." "Better than fine. I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," he said. "You worked hard. You stayed kind. You never asked for more than you needed. You showed me what real strength looks like." Emma closed her eyes. "Sir." "Yes?" She paused, then whispered, "I won't let you down. I know you won't," he replied. After the call, she called her daughters over. "Before we sleep," she said, holding their hands, "let's thank God." The girls nodded. They knelt together on the new rug, eyes closed, hearts open, and, for the first time in what felt like forever, Emma didn't pray for help. She prayed in gratitude. The sunlight filtered softly through the white curtains of the new apartment. Birds chirped on the windowsill, a sound Emma had rarely heard at dawn, at least not without sirens or stray dogs barking in the background. It was peaceful. She lay still for a few moments, eyes half open, letting herself believe that this was real. The soft mattress beneath her, the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the sound of her daughters breathing deeply on their new beds in the room across the hall. Then her phone vibrated on the nightstand. She reached for it and smiled. Mr. William, 6:47 a.m. She picked up immediately. "Good morning, sir." "Emma," he said, his tone warm. "I hope I didn't wake you." "Not at all. I just called to say, don't come in today." Emma blinked. "Sir?" "Take the day off, stay with your girls, cook something." "Good. Make this your first true day of rest. You've earned it." Her hand pressed to her chest. "Thank you, sir. Truly. Enjoy your home, Emma," he said. "Today is yours." She hung up and let the phone rest gently in her lap. Then she rose, walked down the hallway, and peeked into the girls' room. They were still sleeping, tangled in clean bed sheets, faces relaxed in a way she hadn't seen in years. She returned to the kitchen and began preparing breakfast, not from scraps, but from groceries in her very own fridge. Eggs, bread, fresh tomatoes. She hummed a soft melody as she cooked, the air filled with a warm, buttery scent. Soon the girls emerged, rubbing their eyes. "Mommy, why aren't you at work?" the younger one asked. "Because today," Emma said, smiling, "we're all staying home." The girls squealed and hugged her legs. After breakfast, they played games on the living room floor. Laughter bounced off the walls. They danced to music, playing from a secondhand radio Emma had found in the moving box. Then they drew pictures at the dining table, one girl sketching a sun with a smiling face, the other drawing a house with big windows and flowers out front. Emma stood back and looked at their work. "This is our new life," she said softly, "and we'll protect it together." At noon, they all sat cross-legged in the living room and joined hands. "Let's say thank you to God," Emma said. The girls nodded and closed their eyes. "Thank you for our food. Thank you for our home. Thank you for new friends and good people. And thank you for this peace." When they finished, they looked up at her. "Mommy?" the older one asked. "Can we thank Mr. William too?" Emma smiled, eyes wet. "Yes, we will. One day when you're older, you'll tell him yourself." Meanwhile, across town, Mr. William stood at the front of a long boardroom table. Executives and managers sat in a line, staring at him as he flipped through pages of a new company initiative. "Starting next month," he said firmly, "we'll implement an employee support program." He laid out the plan: child care assistance, educational support for staff children, increased wages across departments, and a confidential fund for emergency aid. One manager raised a hand. "Sir, this is generous, but what's the driver? Here? PR? No," Mr. Williams said simply. "Reality." He closed the folder and leaned forward. "I watched one of our quietest employees struggle to feed her children with dignity, and she never once complained. That's not just resilience, that's leadership. And we're going to reward leadership." Silence fell over the room. Then, one by one, heads nodded in agreement. After the meeting, Mr. William returned to his office. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small envelope, the one Emma had returned to him after signing her new contract. He didn't open it, he just held it. There was a note on it, scribbled in her delicate handwriting. "Thank you for seeing me." He smiled faintly. Not because he had done something grand, but because he had simply done something right. Back in her apartment, Emma tucked the girls in for an afternoon nap. She sat on the balcony with a cup of tea, feet up, sun warm on her skin. She closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. No sirens, no fear, no hunger, just the soft hum of safety and hope. She opened her eyes and whispered to the wind, "We made it." If you watched until the end, comment the word HOPE, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with your friends and family.